I move to reconsider the vote by which the Senate consented to request of the senior senator from the 5th to offer an amendment to House Bill 2002 on its third reading.
The senior senator from the 17th moves to reconsider the vote by which the Senate consented to the request of the senior senator from the 5th to offer an amendment to House Bill 2002 on its third reading. Is there discussion? Senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just request to reconsider the Senate's actions on that motion.
Is there further discussion? Senior senator from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to this. I think that this is a wrong move, and I'd like to speak a little bit to that. In 2010, the state steered $40 million in federal funds to Frontier to build a fiber network. After the build-out was complete, a competitor filed a suit alleging that Frontier had broken its promise to allow competitors open access to the network. Later, a Department of Justice investigation found that Frontier had wasted nearly $5 million of the grant and then attempted to cover it up. You know, I've done a little bit of studying on this, and I would like to look at profiles of a monopoly, cable and telecom. Millions of Americans still do not have a real choice when it comes to their internet service. In urban areas, a relative majority can choose between two or more providers, usually the monopoly cable company and often the slower monopoly phone company. In rural areas, the situation is worse. Residents and businesses are often lucky to have access to high-quality internet access at all. No matter where you go, people tend to be confused about their options. Even policymakers tasked with improving access lack basic information as to which service providers are in each geographic region. In this report, it outlines a number of things, but one of the things I would like to highlight is when you look at fiber to home, West Virginia is a desert. When you look at the other maps on fiber networks from cooperatives, we're a desert. When you look at the captured customers, once again, we're a desert. When you look at the power of cable, a cable duopoly, once again, we're a desert. We have a chance with the action we took to actually open access to our areas. And this really affects rural areas. And people may not think about the district that the senator from Cabell and I represent, but we have a lot of rural areas that are not served. Matter of fact, one of our constituents, Delegate Linville, lives in an area that just got funding for RDOF. And I think the move that we're making here is the wrong move. And I really speak against us reconsidering the action of the amendment, because I think the amendment was a good amendment and really moved where our state needed to be. I understand what's going on, and I understand what is at stake here, but what I'll tell you is at stake is I'm really interested in, from being a member, I'm very fortunate to be a member of a intergovernmental agency committee of the FCC. And as one of the 30, only 5 legislative members in the country are on this. And when you start looking at what problems we have a real problem here. These funds, in the amendment that I proposed, was moving in the right direction that we need to go as a state. For many years that I've been here, let me tell you, I made a mistake on BTOP. We did it wrong. This is a chance to change those types of things. If you want to serve the people in the last mile, the last house on the top of the ridge, you allow these funds to be put in the amendment that we adopted and voted upon before. I don't buy that we're really hurting the rural areas. Well, I serve rural areas. Those rural areas aren't served right now. This will give you a chance to serve those rural areas. The state of West Virginia in the last 4 or 5 years has made remarkable strides in this. I give a lot of credit to one member, and that is Speaker Hanshaw. When he was the Vice Chair of Judiciary and passed House Bill, I think it was 3093, and I may have the number wrong, but that was a remarkable shift and really set the tone for where we're going. This body, the year before, had voted in a bill that really actually cost a member of this legislature their job. And that was a shift. This is another incremental step. I understand that, what I'm asking for will not be done, but I will tell you, and I plead with you, you better pay attention to this. You better get involved in this, and we cannot let the monopolies rule the roost or will not serve our people. Thank you.
So further discussion, Senator from Campbell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask everyone to get off their devices for just a minute. Give me 90 seconds. Please.
Senator?
I'm going to address it, but I'd like to have everyone's attention. All right, I guess I'm not entitled to that, so I'll say this. No, Mr. President, let me say this against the amendment. Who has the juice to come in here in this morning to move the world on this? The senator from Wayne, my senior senator, is a preeminent national figure in broadband. He's dedicated years of his life at no compensation to him to move our state forward. Now, I wasn't privy to any of the conversations that have occurred over the last 4 or 5 hours, but people do pay attention to what we do here. And everybody wants to call this the year of broadband. And I'd like somebody to stand up before we vote and tell me what happened in the last few hours. Who has the power to come in here and shake things up like this to the detriment of the citizens and residents of our great state? Who is that, or who are those people? This is like building the interstate back in the 60s. Who has the power to do that? Who has the power to do that? So, I would just ask someone to stand up. Maybe one of you folks that are still on your phones, stand up and say why we are changing this a few hours later.
So further discussion. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The senior senator from 5th Yield.
Senior Senator from the 5th Yield. Senator Yields.
Thank you, Senator. I've been back and forth on this vote, whereas we've considered it, now a couple times. And the reason is because I think that you explain why it may be needed, but the practical impact of how we get there, I'm still a bit confused on. So on the rest of the bill without the amendment, I feel very, very comfortable with. And I'm worried about the impact of this amendment could have on the bill and some of the people within my district to be able to eventually get the service. And so I have a very legitimate concern, so I want to ask a couple of questions to try to help me figure some of this out. So one of the concerns I have is that if we're going to say that in an unfunded and unserved area, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because I may misunderstand your amendment, because I don't disagree that you have more expertise in this area than I do, but I also want to make sure I'm not leaving out constituents in my district. So if this is unfunded and unserved area, and it's open access, if it's wholly government subsidized, if I have a plan to go into an area, or private industry is going to go in there, or they've started to invest in an area that's going to branch out into that, and now there's risk that the government, with all this money that comes in, that somebody could come in and pull down that a city, municipality, county, co-op, or whatever could come in and pull the federal money as a whole, and then contract with the provider to lay the fiber, and then contract with an ISP then to light the fiber up, then my investment in that infrastructure, even getting up to that point for what I'm looking in my marketing plan for growth, seems to me it could be at risk. And I have no ownership in any such business. So it's just it's not a conflict. But what I do know is that I asked a lot of questions about people around this part of it, if the bill accomplishes some of the stuff around co-ops that you're very familiar with, we've discussed before, that could happen. And I was told that it does. So without the amendment, can a municipality or a county come in and say, we're going to create a network that allow any service provider to come in through, light it up, and then be able to use that municipality or county owned, because they would be using federal, or they'd be using public funds, possibly, or grant funds from the federal government, or their own funds, or a mix thereof. So if they do that, the bill itself, without your amendment, can that still be accomplished?
Well, you've asked me about 3 or 4 questions.
I'm sorry about that. Again, it's, you know.
So let me go with what I thought was the first one.
Okay.
Your investment into that. Now, the investment that you're talking about is the investment from a company, a municipality, or all of those?
Fair question. So here I want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly too, because I don't want you to misanswer me for misunderstanding me. So let's say Company A has a plan for growth into an area because of all the other monies are coming down, and maybe they're just a small fraction of the ownership, but they're going to have the opportunity to enjoy some of those stimulus funds, and then add some of their own money in. So they've got skin in the game, and they're going to go in and lay the fiber down to get into a market area. But now a county or municipality starts saying, you know what, we're going to do our own open access network. And now that company that was going to be in there and the open access work may survive or it may fail. But what I would do, I would think, if I was the person who was going to go in and put my money in that, I would retract really, really hard. I think, okay, well, I'm going to open it up to 3, 4, 5 more competitors in an area when there was none. And I put all this money in my infrastructure. So would that increase the risk to me?
If you're a private sector company or a private person, the way that the amendment reads is it would not be open access. Because if you put $1 or 1% into it, it would not affect what you're doing.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, if there's potential for open access to compete against me, that investment is substantially at risk, because now my own taxpayer dollars going to that area potentially are going to be used to compete against me. That's my concern.
So in the terms of open access and middle mile, let's consider what we're talking about in this whole thing. We do not have a middle mile infrastructure in the state of West Virginia. We have remnants of that in different places, but let's just take the area that you and I share as, common geography. There is not an ability to do anything because the incumbent providers own whatever that is. However, if you want to go to an unserved area, sometimes you're going to have to go through a served area to be able to get that. That would be the middle mile. Now, once again, if you're talking about open access as any provider can do that, including the provider that you talked about. They can upgrade their system with that. They can do whatever they want to. But the fact that someone has a monopoly on an area, and I think most of the people in this body are not, that's what's been hampering us, is because of the monopoly and the fact that we don't have the ability to have any choice. So nothing in what I'm trying to do or what this amendment's doing goes against any private, I don't want to use monopoly investment. Anyone that wants to put into that, I'm all in favor of that. What we would like to do is open up more access to citizens throughout this whole area. Because we've got areas, look at where in Wayne County, one part of Wayne County that I serve, and one part of Wayne County that's served by the Center for Mercer and the Senior Center from the 6th, we got SpaceX come in for RDOF and bid on that. And you tell me, how in the world is that going to serve our citizens? So, in my answer to you on that question is, we are not trying to do anything to any of the incumbent providers that own what they have in the investment they make. If they make an investment in it, it is not open access.
So my next question, just based on that answer, and hopefully I remember my other questions, because it's, like I said, I want to make sure I get all this clear before I cast my vote. If that's the case, why would people who are ready to start investing, or maybe already are and already working to deploy fiber, because what I keep hearing, I don't know the names, nobody's told me a name, it's always said industry. So, and what I keep hearing is industry objects to this, and that they'll pull back and not hit those rural areas. So, why would they say that if that's not the case?
I don't know, but the government would be a partner with them. We've got to do the look, in all cases, to get to the last mile, we got to help them. We've got to help those partners that you're talking about, industry. One of the member of the industry that we're all sort of, talking about here is the same group that filed the suit against Frontier to have open access. So why wouldn't they be, amenable to looking at open access now? I understand investments. I understand company investments. I understand this. But remember, most of the money that's coming from the federal government is from the FCC. And remember that a lot of the fees that they're doing are the same fees you're paying, I'm paying, every member of the body and our citizens are paying. The universal service fee. So these the money that's coming in are money that we've paid out, and they're coming back and they're helping the monopolies. All I'm trying to do in this amendment is to give us some options. There are funding options in that. It's subject, as the finance chair, you understand this, it's subject to legislative appropriation. They're just funding. And they're platforms that you can look at, and actually speeds that we need, that we realize from what we've gone through with the pandemic, are needed just to exist as a business and as citizens.
And I'll come back to the legislative appropriation, because I have a question there too that may get, if this amendment were to fail, I don't think the opportunity that you're trying to get to completely is eliminated. So I want to come back and discuss that a little bit as well in just a second. So on the part with another thing that I think I've heard people say that's an issue, and I called some of the federal people today because I had questions about this. I said, I'm trying to learn as fast as I could as this thing's going through, and did I make the right decision or did I not on casting that vote? Because I was not sure what I was going to hit all the way down, or say every time, all the way to when we said it. In talking with some of the people at the federal level about this issue, one of the things they said as well is that if we're going to put a fully publicly owned fiber down, and now you have an internet service provider who says, okay, we're going to contract with you to use that fiber, we're going to light it up. And now, but they have no control over the maintenance and infrastructure of that fiber that is publicly owned. And something happens. And so maybe now that internet service provider is seen as the person providing the internet, even though the fiber would be wholly owned by a public fund or public entity. And now their quality of service to their customer is dependent on a municipality or a county or some public entity who has no expertise in that area. How long are they down? How long does it take to get it repaired? The hiccups that we all really complain. I can sit here and talk about several providers where I have multiple businesses in that, I'm at the edge of cussing their name about every day because of some sort of slowdown in service. And so competition, I want. I'm with you there. But if I'm that provider, why in the world would I come in and put my name at risk on a public fiber to provide somebody service if I can't maintain the quality of the fiber?
If they put their money in on a public-private, it's not going to be open access.
Okay, maybe I didn't say it right. So if it's open access, maybe I misunderstand this again. Public money came in, either by tax money, federal money, or something, but there's no private entity in it. That municipality or county or co-op would, I assume, contract with somebody, use that money to put the fiber down. Would that be accurate?
There would be a contract to put fiber, whether if you're doing it in the ground, it'll be directional boring, much like what we've had in the state coming from Ashburn, Virginia, with Facebook in this case, others as well. And there is an operation and maintenance that everybody has to participate in. And the operation and maintenance, particularly when you're putting in fiber in the ground, is very minimal as you move forward. However, you would have some entity that would be doing that would not necessarily be the municipality or something. It would be some group with expertise.
So somebody they would contract with to do that?
Yes.
How you're envisioning that? So there'd be a node at the end of wherever that is, and then it goes out to the home from the node.
So, and the problem you have right now is the companies that have if I have a contract with a company that's providing me internet service, what you sign and what they tell you as guarantees, there's always fine print in the bottom of that. And let me give you an example. When we were looking at internet speeds and speed tests in Huntington, West Virginia, which you would think, we're going to have great speed tests. When they gave you the over and under, the top speed and what you would get for upload and download, it was 3% of what the company had stated. And that's what we're trying to avoid. I'm not going to tell you that I have all the answers on all of those things. Once again, before you do those funds, I do trust the development office and the Office of Broadband to come up with a plan that would be fair and would be looking at that, and that's where we're placing some of the trust in that.
Okay. So then I want to get back to my original question then, is in the existing bill, if a municipality or county was going to do a co-op either themselves or with a public-private partnership, in the existing bill without your amendment, can that occur?
It could happen, except for there is no matching money from the state to help facilitate that, because most of the time they're not going to have enough money to do that. It could be done.
So
let me tell you, the bill as it has been amended from the House over to here is a good bill. I am not going to tell you, I will get up here and say, let's vote for this. But I think with this amendment, it makes it a better bill, and it gives us a better direction in this year when we have a lot of federal funds that are coming to us, that we could have some pots of money to be able to give to the areas or match to the areas and get ISP providers engaged. Because to be honest with you, when we're looking at Huntington, we'd love to have an ISP provider involved. The city of Huntington engaged for a 2-year trying to get every ISP provider in the area to engage with them, and they said no. So what I'm saying is this gives you some ability, subject to appropriation. You know, if we don't think this is right, we don't have to appropriate it, but I do think it gives you some templates in there and gives you some guidelines that will be great for the broadband office to be able to do, to make sure that we give the service to West Virginians that we all were trying to do in this year of broadband.
Okay, so I'm sorry to take up the Senate's time on this thing, but I'm still questions. And I've been asking, haven't had any confidence in the answers on some of this. So Huntington tried this, it sounds like, but couldn't get an internet service provider to jump onto the fiber that they were using. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Why?
Because they said that they were already offering service and they weren't interested in increasing the service. And then not until the area went after some grants did we finally get a West Virginia company to come in and say, they'll help you.
Okay. So my next question is that, would you agree that with at any given time, if we wanted this to happen later, so if there are people who are uncomfortable with the amendment now, because we're reconsidering this amendment, so you know that there's got to be people who are uncomfortable with it. And I'm still a little bit uneasy because people honestly trust what you're telling me, but also trust what the other people are telling me, and that's why I'm torn. The way that this is, the way I understand it, we could also at some point, if we wanted to do this as a body, we could put directive language in a budget to do this. So if the amendment's not there, but we go through, and this bill is a good, solid bill, and the opportunity comes up because somebody is not funded, could we not, because the Broadband Enhancement Fund, we just increased that spending authority, could we not at some point put directive language in that just says that this is the money to go to this open access if we ever wanted it?
Yes, we could, but we haven't. We haven't even put the money in it for this year, not even the money that we said that we were going to. So, in my estimation, a lot of this is going to be driven by our citizens. I'm getting more calls about internet service, the lack of attention from the internet providers, and all this is a tool, and that's the thing that really baffles me in this. It's a tool for West Virginians and for the broadband office to do this. If we come in a special session and want to appropriate some money, you already have the pockets that you could put some of it in to do that. And this has been, I've been involved in so many things from broadband. Look, I knew virtually nothing. And I decided I want to learn about it. I want to do this. I've gone to Pew Charitable Trust. Delegate Linville and I spent a couple times doing there. They actually came in and interviewed a number of legislators and the Broadband Council and said the state of West Virginia is moving in the right direction. You need to look at open access. You need to look at E-rate. We don't use E-rate enough and in the right manner in the state of West Virginia to be able to build fiber. And right now at this nexus that we have the state of West Virginia. We've got the The FCC guidelines, we have the Treasury, there's $7.4 billion coming down to all the states from the FCC for E-rate. There is money in the American Recovery Act and the CARES Act that county school systems can help look at how you do internet, and it doesn't have restrictions on that. So to me, that's what we're trying to do, is look at this so we can look at it, and I hope that the ISP providers will engage in this and not shut us out like they have in the past. And that's my fear.
Okay, so, and the one final question is about those guidelines. As we have money coming in from the federal, especially from the rescue plan, there's like $136 million that is specifically for broadband. And what we've seen with the CARES money is that the money comes in and the rules change 4 or 5 times before you realize actually how you can spend it. And so if we go in and establish the rules around how those funds sit and how the money is going to be deployed, and the federal money comes in and we decide to appropriate that money to one of these buckets that you've got within this amendment, but the rules don't match up, do we tie the money up and that's a concern, or are we coming right back in and changing this when all we would have to do is go in and do directive language and an appropriation?
Well, I mean, we're talking about
Or spending authority.
federal funding. The federal funding has guidelines that the states and the cities, the counties, and all have to abide by. The CARES Act is pretty well established, and there's a significant amount of money in the school systems to be able to look at this. When we talk about state money would go to the Office of Broadband or the Development Office now that is newly, newly created. And they would just go ahead and spend it as they would do it without any guidelines or any direction on this. You know, you've got the Broadband Enhancement Council that really does not have spending authority to do that. They look at the ability to do things. They've got a whole statutory guidelines that the legislature has created, but only now the Office of Broadband can be able to engage and enhance broadband and internet through our areas and through the state. I just think that, simply put, I just think that this amendment achieves one additional step in the process. I will tell you that I think this bill is good without it. It's better with it.
I appreciate you answering my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Senator from Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. President, for a second time. Just wanted to say that as I picked up my telephone to look at my text, it occurred to me there's a little irony going on with my earlier comments. So I regret my comments about people being on their devices. I'm not sure anybody was on his or her device when I said that, but then I got on my device.
Thank you, Senator. Is there further discussion? If not, the question is before the Senate reconsidered the vote by which the Senate consented to the request of the senior senator from the 5th to offer an amendment to House Bill 2002 on third reading. Senator from Brooke.
So if I wanted to reconsider the actions by which we took on the gentleman's amendment, I should vote green at this point?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Somebody call for roll call. Roll call's been demands. Demand sustained. The demand is sustained. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the sheet. every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 23 yeas, 11 nays, 0 absent, not voting. I declare the motion adopted. Question now is on the request of the senior senator from the 5th to offer an amendment to the House Bill 2002 on its third reading. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the Senate consent to the request of the senior senator from the 5th to offer an amendment to House Bill 2002 on its third reading? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare
Rethink? You got
the ayes do have it. I declare the Senate does not have the consent to request the senior senator of the 5th. The clerk will read the bill a third time. Are there amendments to the bill? Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
And the question is, clerk will read the bill a third time.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2002 relating to broadband, third reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced. No. We're voting. Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Most of you have heard this, but I've explained it 3 times in a row now. The bill works greatly to ease access for broadband internet and creates Office of Broadband underneath the newly formed Department of Economic Development. It also is careful not to encroach on the state's, county, and municipalities' control over the broadband futures. And finally, the preemption article in this bill creates a blanket preemption in favor of broadband installation and deployment, and I urge passage of the bill.
Is there discussion? If not, question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? Or if so, the clerk will close the machine to ascertain the results. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Senator Maynard moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective May 27 of 2021. Request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective May 27, 2001, and request unanimous consent the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 34 yeas, 0 nays, 0 absent, not voting. More than two-thirds of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill effective May the 27th, 2021. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Bills on first reading.
There are none.
Introduction of guest. Remarks by members. Senator from Randolph.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to thank the members of the Senate for giving me an opportunity related to the broadband bill that we just discussed, and we spent a few extra days on to consider that amendment, in part because I didn't catch exactly what was going on there, and I'd like to thank the senior senator from the 5th for working with me to try to make that amendment better. I think it's actually still got a lot of merit, the ideas that were contained in the amendment, but I understand that the majority of the body wants to take a little bit more time to put something together on that, and so I just wanted to thank the members, and particularly the senator from the 5th, for the work that was put into this, and hopefully we do see some more progress made on this issue here in the future. Thank you.
Further remarks by members. Senator, be at ease for one moment. I didn't.
Senior Senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Am I hot? Thank you. I just wanted to come back here and talk like this for a minute. There was a little bit of confusion that went on there, and I wanted everybody to understand what was going on. Look, when we did this morning, and we passed the senior senator from the 5th Amendment, and it went through, there was a bunch of feedback that came from the sector on building out this broadband. Now, here we are on day 59, and we know how important that bill is to the deployment in broadband throughout the state of West Virginia. Now, that does not diminish in any way the senior senator from 5th Amendment. And when we just got done doing this here a while ago, I had promised the senior senator from the 5th that he would be able to do an amendment. Now, it may not have passed, but he was going to be able to do an amendment, and this is what was attempting to take place on that. Now, he didn't have an amendment, but I want the senior senator from the 5th to understand something. And that is just because we didn't get this done right here and now, that doesn't mean that if this works, it has the potential to make it so that we can do an even better job of getting broadband deployed throughout the state of West Virginia, that we cannot come back during a special session. You have my word that we get this worked out, find out whether it's working or not, and get it finished up. We're just sort of in the final hours here on this, and I want you to know that. And I want everybody in here to know that, because my number one goal is here is to get broadband on, fiber on the poles everywhere in the state of West Virginia. I'm in the fastest growing area of the state, and I can see from my home people that do not have broadband. This is ridiculous. It's time for this state to be fibered. I applaud what you were trying to do, but we don't want to do something that actually slows down the process. And we've already got, when it comes to pole attachments in this state, a certain entity that is prevented, and I don't mind saying that word, prevented competition and other people, other businesses that are in the industry are getting fiber on the poles. And those same folks won 2/3 of the RDOF money. There's something wrong with that. Thank God our senators in Washington, D.C. are fighting back against that, because these people can actually make more money by paying the fines and not following through on RDOF. And I applaud everybody in here for the work that we're doing on getting the broadband deployment out. This includes the governor and the House of Delegates and everybody else that's out here working hard to make sure that we use every resource that we possibly can to do it. It will make everybody's life better. It will make it so that people will move to this state. You can work from home. Everybody's heard me say it before, so I won't get into that. But the opportunities for counties to increase their tax revenues will grow by having fiber on the poles. So I wanted to, especially the senior senator from the 5th, to understand that what we did here today was not a beatdown in any way, especially in my eyes. But it's keeping our word to the people of West Virginia, and we will get there. And if your idea to be able to do this proves out, I will be an advocate for calling us back into special session and getting it done. And we're going to have interims this year, and we'll put special session overlaid right on that. I will lobby the governor to do it, and we all have to keep in mind that we can call ourselves back in with 3/5 of the vote, or 3/5 of the members of each end of the building. So I wanted everybody to know that. It was a little bit messed up here in the appearance of it, but more than anything, I didn't want the appearance that we were doing a beatdown on somebody, because that was not the case. What we were really trying to do is expedite the fiber on the poles deployment of broadband throughout the state of West Virginia. And I wanted the people of West Virginia to hear that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks?